And we're live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Live Reality Games. And we're continuing our Survivor Angelica coverage. My name is Parker, and as always, I'm joined with Nathan. Nathan, how you doing?
I am fantastic. I thought this was the best episode of the season.
Oh, I absolutely agree. We had two tribal councils, two people got eliminated, a live tribal, and the twist of the season culminating all in one. We got a fun one to talk about. But first, we're joined by some great guests. Returning with us, we talked to him earlier in the season. He's come back again. He's the host with the most. We got Jason. Jason, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Glad to be here. Can't wait to talk about it.
And also joining us, his first appearance on the podcast. Very excited to talk to him. He was down, but he's not out, ladies and gentlemen. We got Tori. Tori, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great tonight. How you guys doing?
Doing very well.
Good.
Well, so we got a lot to talk about, of course. But first, we always like to start off with asking the players what is, their history with Angelica, how they get involved with it. Tori, I'm curious, what is your background with Survivor Angelica? Were you a fan of Survivor, or is this just something that kind of fell into your lap?
Well, I've been a fan of Survivor for the longest time. I actually had a friend that played the previous season that posted the episodes as they were coming out. And I'm like, what is this? How do I apply? So, I applied immediately. Something I wanted to do. And then once I got there, I'm like, wow, this is great.
Jason, that's always a fun story. I feel like that's been the case for a couple of players this season, probably others, where you get people who've played and then they tell their friends or their loved ones about it. Is that common in your application pool of friends or relatives of past players?
Yeah, we get that a lot. And, every time it's like the same reaction from everybody. Like, well, we never knew this existed until you showed us about your season or your episode and usually sometimes it's not even just watching the season or the episodes. It's one specific moment in a game that somebody watches and they're like, wait a second, I've always wanted to do that. Sign me up. So.
and Tori, you bring up a good point. It's like, because when I found out about these games, I didn't know they existed either. I was always a fan of Survivor, and I'm like, I didn't know that fans put on these versions as well. I thought the only one existed was the CBS version. So it's always cool when people can learn about these games for the first time. And on top of that, there's not only just one. When I played the first time, I thought that game was the only one, but there's multiple, so it's always fun. Nathan, why don't you get us started? How do we start this episode off? Because we got a lot to talk about.
We started off this episode by depriving our players in production of sleep of any kind. So we go straight from tribal to challenge, right?
Or
not a challenge.
From tribal into tribal. Yeah, we don't even get a challenge. That was a twist. I'm very curious, Jason. Obviously, when you guys are putting in these twists, that differ from the norm a little bit, you're in the back on production, you have a whiteboard, you're like, oh, wouldn't this be great if this happened? Or we would hope this kind of thing would happen. When you're putting in a live tribal council, what kind of fireworks do you hope as producers to get?
Uh-oh, I lost you at what kind of fireworks do you?
Oh, sorry. That's probably my horrible internet. I apologize. Just as producers, what do you hope to get from a twist like this from the players?
Well, for us, we had so many elements in the game, idols, advantages, twists, that we wanted to draw them out. And this was kind of our way to really force the hand and say, this is definitely going to throw people for a loop and not give them much time and really not leave them much of an option other than to start drawing out some of these idols, or at least considering it and maybe talking about it and using it as some leverage towards their conversations in those few minutes they get to walk over to tribal as we catch them right as they're walking to camp. I think somebody admits it in one of their confessionals that we took the long way here and we kind of took our time to try to have some conversations and scramble last minute before we got back to tribal. So, but ultimately, that's our thought process. Is we have so many elements in this game, and every year we want to see them come to fruition. So we're trying to force our hand a little more to create that situation, or at least set the table for it to happen. And if it happens, good. If not, then at least we tried and as best we could.
Was this a response during the game of, okay, no one's playing any of their advantages, so let's pull this out now? Or was it something that a previous season that you had, or what was this a response to, would you say?
This was purely part of our plan from the beginning. We decided that we wanted to increase the chances of some of our twists being played, the keys, the idols that may or may not be found. We had a hard time keeping track of who had idols and who had, because we had quite a few out there, and all we were hearing is nobody could find them. And we searched our areas as we could without giving anything away to make sure we knew what was in the game and what wasn't. But this was, we're getting down there in numbers, and we want to start seeing some action and start seeing some conversations. So this was definitely part of the plan. And part of it was in response to previous seasons where we had a lot of other twists and advantages that went into the game and just never got played. So many people had idols and didn't use them and got voted out with them in their pockets. And so that's the last thing we want to see. So this is kind of a way to really say, all right, now's a chance to use it. So
it definitely infringes on paranoia and on the players. You don't have the time to talk about it. Nathan, we've seen live tribals the last couple of seasons, and do you think we have a good enough idea of what is a good approach to take as a player? Like, what are you supposed to do in this situation? And if so, what is it?
I did kind of like Mark's approach of just let people come to me for the most part. I kind of thought that was a power move. He's just sitting in a corner by himself. I appreciated that. I feel like it's kind of just quote unquote. I feel like there's not really a correct way to approach it. I mean, what do y'all think? Do you think there's any one specific way you should do it?
Well, well, that actually leads to my next question. I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all approach, but I am curious, as someone who was there, Tori, what did you have a specific approach you wanted to take in this? Was it throw out a name? Was it people come to you? How did you want to approach this live tribal?
So I found that people came to me a lot, and the people I trusted, I had no problem throwing names out. Sarah. You already know it was a lot of Sarah. But yeah, I found people came to me. People were always pulling me aside. I'd like that. I didn't really have to approach anybody. So, like Mark, I just didn't have to sit in a corner as long as Mark did. People to come, people just bam, 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 and I'm like, okay. Like that one tribal, I think it was Christina, was like whispering something to me. I couldn't hear, so I just dropped off the log and went back. Jason made note of it, and then that's when that scramble happened.
Tori, this does relate. It's a slightly different topic. It comes back to this live tribals. We've heard throughout these episodes in confessionals, people see you as the guy to beat. You are, you have a good chance of winning the game. You're good in challenges. People like you. Were you aware that people had this perception of you?
I put it in my own head. After that first challenge, I was beating myself up. I'm like, I think I did way too much. I showed athleticism. And then I just don't like to lose. I don't. So there's no me giving like 50% or 60% in a challenge. I'm going 100%. I don't want to be that first person going home. Didn't want it to happen. So that other tribe, they can have all those other tribal councils. I didn't want it. So I was going 100% the whole time, which who knows, could lead to my downfall, or it could be my, shining moment.
Well, and the reason I brought that up is because if you're already aware that people may be coming for you, if you're in this live tribal situation, I don't know if you have the time to sit idly and just hope it works out. I think you were probably in a position where you needed to make things happen and talk to people. So I thought you had a good approach doing that. I don't know if you were in the position where, you could just hope people wouldn't vote for you. So I thought you had a good approach for your positioning. But Jason, it is interesting. Nathan brings up a good point. Mark, people are coming to him. I don't think Mark moves a muscle in that whole tribal council. And is that indicative to Mark's position in the game at this point, that people are just so comfortable with him?
You know, I think you bring up a good point. He did kind of just sit idle, and he was kind of on a cruise control mode where people were coming to him, and he didn't have to do much, and all he had to do was listen. And if he had any sort of agenda that he wanted to spit out, he could, and it didn't come with any sort of repercussions. He was well liked, and I think that people trusted him. And he was really working a lot of angles. And now looking back at some of the footage, because I didn't see some of the stuff happen, um, it was quite impressive. And we've all talked about it in our little group chats too. And he even surprised himself with as he was watching the footage. He's like, "Wow, you're right." So I think he had a different approach, as the game moved forward of how he was going to handle things as people started to approach him. So, and I will add too, one other thing that we had thought about for this whole tribal concept was also time constraints. The previous season we went to almost, it was like 1:30 in the morning, and it just, we had rain delays, we had all sorts of other things, and those sort of things, you try to make up time where you can. You build challenges that you think might work to increase your time where, this challenge might only take 15 minutes versus one that could take an hour. So we try to build those in. And this was another concept that as we started to talk about it more, we're like, this could save our night, or it could go the opposite way and take way longer than expected. But we wanted to take a gamble on it and just see how it played out. There was a lot of fun that was had in creating the concept of it. So we were pleased with it. If we do it again, cool. If not, there's definitely some other options we have available.
Jason, I'm curious as a host, when live tribals happen on the CBS version, we see Jeff Probst. He's almost watching as like a viewer at home. He's just in awe. He can't fall. And I noticed that you weren't watching, but you kind of took a more backseat approach to the live tribal council. You would, you tried to ask questions, but people ignored you. So I'm curious, as a host in these situations, how much do you, as Jason, try to poke and prod to get answers, and how much do you just let it happen, whatever's going to happen?
So part of the focus of this one was we were trying to get a lot of camera angles and kind of encroach on them so we could get some of that footage and get some of the audio clips, but we had a lot of trouble just because the microphones were so sensitive. They pick up every stick breaking, every bug chirping, the frogs in the background, the crickets. It's like, it just consumes all the audio. So we didn't have a lot to go with. And my plan was just sort of to let them talk it out, maybe draw some conversation, as I could, but I knew that it was going to be hard because I know they wanted to just talk. So I kind of turned it into more of a play-by-play as if it were a challenge, and just kind of, this person's doing that. These three are breaking off over here. This is going on over here. And then every once in a while I'd hear a comment or something, and I'd make a mention of it, or, Mark's over here and he's alone, or, that kind of thing. So that was about the best I could do with it, and just let the viewers see what was happening and what my perception of it was.
For those of you who are watching at home, Tori, obviously a challenge beast, but his greatest challenge thus far has been getting his camera to focus throughout this podcast.
Why you gotta do him like that?
I knew it was coming.
Nathan, as viewers, the vote ended up ultimately being Ayla. That didn't shock me too much, because it seems almost as though, we're in these situations, you don't know what's fully going to happen as a player. You fall back on what happened most recently. Well, Sarah went home. Ayla was Sarah's close ally. Maybe it makes sense to go that way. Were you surprised that it ended up falling on Ayla, or did you follow the same train of logic that I kind of did?
I wasn't shocked by it. A lot of these live tribals, especially with since they're being dictated by alliances that we aren't fully we don't fully understand yet. I didn't find Ayla to be a shocking vote out, but I also wasn't immediately predicting it as the next elimination. Tori,
Ayla, in her final words, she says a point, and again, as viewers, we didn't quite pick up on it because there was so much going on, but she says that at one point you tried to throw Justin out there to try to get the vote on him. Was that true?
Oh, it's 100% true. Going to tribal, it was not supposed to be Ayla. I think Christina was the one that said, it's too early to do Justin. I didn't know the connection they had. Didn't know it. Oblivious to it. But I wanted Justin. I heard through the grapevine that he's done these games before. You know what? No, he's got to go. I love him. He's a great guy, but he was my main target. I mean, I made it known. I don't think he knew. I don't think we got footage of that, did we? Of that blow up, him blowing up on me.
If we did, I don't know if it made it. There was so much footage. We're still having a hard time. Kurt is like, he's losing his mind with the amount of footage he has and what he has to put into episodes. There's a lot of stuff that didn't get put in that, it's just the way it is. But I wouldn't doubt if there is. I could look through it and find it, I'm sure, and we could have some fun with it.
Oh yeah, because Justin called me out. You're saying my name, Tori? No, I didn't say your name. and Ashley backed me up. She goes, I swear he did not just say your name. Thank you.
So, Tori, where did it go
this
wrong?
Was after Tribal? This was after Tribal, like the next day or something? When did this happen?
This was during Tribal.
Oh, okay. Shoot.
This was during Tribal. So I was, watching the episode. I'm like, oh, okay, it didn't make the cut. All right. But it was intense.
Yeah, and that's why if in your situation, knowing that happened, I'm sure you were even more surprised you didn't even cop a vote.
Well, everybody started whispering Ayla, and I'm just like, crap. I didn't want her to go. I mean, I wasn't mad that she did go. But then, I look back as I'm talking to like Ashley and others, and there's Ayla sitting by herself with the saddest look on her face. And that's when I'm sitting there and I'm like, I hate this game. Because I don't hate anybody. And just seeing her just secluded like that, that's got to be a bad feeling. It's got to be a bad feeling. So I really felt for her at that moment. But like I said, it was supposed to be Justin, and it changed.
So, Nathan, unfortunately, Ayla does end up going here. She tries the key, doesn't end up working out. We lose Ayla here. And I thought Ayla was a lot of fun. I thought she played the game really well. She had a lot of fun sound bites. What was your take on Ayla?
I thought she was fantastic. I think last week, we discussed some of the people most likely to end up on CBS Survivor, and I put her as one of those. Yeah, I thought she was great. A lot of people lately who I've been like really bummed to see go. I mean, like we got Sarah, we got Ayla, and we're about to lose Tori. Just ripping our hearts out here. Thankfully, a twist came in,
and this cast is so good. Like all of them left have their own little personality and storyline, so it's going to be a tough couple last few votes from a viewer standpoint. But Jason, what was your take on Ayla out there? How was she? How did you enjoy her out in the season?
She was great. She brought a lot of different elements to the game. She was definitely competitive. She worked some different angles behind the scenes that not all the camera, confessionals got. Some of those were just, standard footage, but she did a lot of things that I think, she played a really good game. And I think that she would even play it a little bit differently, a little bit more aggressively, I think, next time around. She was a great person, and we had casted her for, I want to say it might have been the COVID season. It would have been that season. And, she's from Canada, so she couldn't make it across the border. And then we were going to try for the next season, and she wasn't able to do 2021 because there were still some restrictions. So it took a while to get her on board. So it was a long time coming, and I know she was really excited to get there. So I'm glad that she made it as far as she did because it had been such a long time coming for her.
Tori, you got to spend a lot of time with Ayla out there. What was your take on Ayla out in the game?
Ayla, oh man, just listening to her and Sarah, I couldn't tell if they were enemies, if they were friends. It was, kumbaya one moment and then just bickering the next. And I'm just sitting there like, popcorn, tea, anybody got any? So it was, I don't know. I got nothing negative to say about Ayla. She was different. She was sensitive in a good way. You know, she's very in touch with her emotions, and I love her for that. We still talk. But yeah, we'll get to more things about that later.
Oh,
In the meantime, we're heading to the greatest band breakup in the history of the world. Dan's Angels.
I was about to say this
It's
was
not Dan and the Gangsters. He made that stuff up on his own. Nobody co-signed that. I don't know where that came from.
Tori, I was going to ask you about that because when we had Mark on, he said that confessional was the first time any of the rest of you had heard Dan the Gangsters was a thing. So you're just confirming that Dan just threw that out there.
Yeah, Dan just threw it out there. Like, we saw Justin in the background. It was me, Dan, and Mark. We had already solidified a final three. Come to find out, Mark had his hands in all the cookie jars. But I mean, that's how great of a guy Mark is. But yeah, we saw Justin walking around. And that's I'm like, hey, you can come over if you want. I had no intention on working with Justin at all. So we call him over, and I guess that was Dan's way of just saying, "Oh yeah, we're a group, Dan and the Gangsters." Yeah, it's
I like that he even named it. It's one thing to say this is our 4. A lot of times these games, people don't give it a name. They're just like, "Oh, we're a 3 or we're a 4." But no, Dan went full alliance name, like this is Big Brother. So it was very entertaining.
I mean, I'm from Brockport, New York. There's nothing gangster about me. So.
Tori, you actually answered a question I had later on. I was curious because we hear it all throughout the episodes. You're good with Dan, you're good with Mark. How early into the game did you solidify your final 3 with Mark? Was that something that happened very early on, or did that come around the swap period?
It was immediately. Before the game, we all got to mingle. Found out me and Mark are from the same city. Okay. That's a bond right there. Everybody else is from different parts, Philly, Buffalo. So, bam, it's like, all right, I like Mark. I can work with him. And then Dan was just that guy that was there and just seemed cool and chill. And so we just started working with each other like right off the bat, right off that first tribal. Bam, we got together. Hey, final 3. I'm good with you two. Boom, let's do it.
Would you have been more likely to stick with Justin had Dan thrown out a catchier name for the alliance? You don't like Dan and the Gangsters, but if there was some cooler name, would you have been more open to this idea?
Not at all. No. It wasn't happening.
So we do get into our immunity challenge for the episode, and this is a classic. This is a memory. Jason, you give a sequence of events. The players have to repeat it. Last one standing wins. Nathan, these are always fun because these are one of the few that, as a viewer, you can play along with at home, test your own skills, see how you do. Nathan, is there a good strategy for this type of challenge? We've seen it a lot. Is there a good strategy for it?
I think the good strategy is to be a neurotic high school student and then just carry that kind of angst with you through the rest of your life. I genuinely think I'd be good at this challenge because I have spent many mornings before test memorizing study words and things of that nature. So I think that's the key here. What do you think? Do you think you'd be good at this, Parker?
No. I am horrible. When I did this challenge, I made it a couple of rounds. My goal was just to not be the first one out, and I wasn't. But I have really bad, short-term memory. You can give me a sequence or a group of sentences, and I won't remember it, if you put me on the spot. Whereas I can remember things that happened 10 years ago to the day. I don't know why. That's just how I am. But I personally am not. I've heard different kinds of strategies for this. Play a song in your head, associate each symbol with something. There's lots of different memory techniques you can do. Jason, what about you? What would you do in this challenge? Would you have a strategy?
Yeah, I've actually, from when I played, I think they had a similar style challenge to this. And I made it pretty far. I don't think I won that challenge. I may have. I don't remember, to be honest with you. It was a long time ago. It was 2008, I want to say, 2009. But for me, it was trying to associate the images to each other. So, like for instance, if it was ship and then sun, it was like, all right, the ship sails when it's sunny, and and I would build a storyline with it and try to play that back in my head. The only time it got interesting was when, like for this year, we mixed the colors up. They were all black and white, but it was retroversed, so it would be or whatever you call it, but one black versus white, white versus black, and so that made it difficult because like the scroll, I think a lot of people got caught up on that scroll, and there was another one too, but those being flip-flopped could catch you really quick and catch you off guard. But I like this challenge, and part of our goal with this was let's do it at Tribal for the scenery, but let's also do it right after the Tribal, not let them go back to camp. We're going to keep them right there because now we're in their heads, and this is a mental challenge. So they're thinking, well, what are we doing now? And now we're doing a challenge here. Well, what happens after this challenge? Are we going right back into a Tribal? Are we done for the night? What are we doing? So it just was one of those, let's just, for this next, that whole situation at Tribal, the whole time we're there, the whole plan was to just really create some drama and chaos and just really get people thinking and turning this game on if it's not turned on yet for some of these players to really ignite that flame and flip that switch for, when they go back to camp, they better start talking and real quick because they don't know what's coming next. So
you mentioned that there was some had some trouble with the images. Some of them were similar. The colors were similar. Was that intentional when you pick out the images? You try to get similar ones so maybe it can trip them up?
Yeah, I mean, that was really the plan. Is every image we had was a double image, and the colors were just reversed on them all. So it was a block of maybe 18 images that we had to choose from, and then we just doubled them up. So now we've got 36, but it's any mix or match that we want to do. So we knew that it probably wouldn't last too long. That was actually a pretty quick challenge. We thought, I think we had it down for maybe a half hour, and I don't think it took more than maybe 10 minutes. So
that's the other good part about this challenge for a production aspect is you don't expect it to go that long. So you can kind of put it in a situation where we need a challenge that won't last too long, or we're at the end of the day, we want to be quicker. So I'm sure that was part of the placing for this round.
Yep. Yeah, it definitely was.
That's one of the things that you just don't anticipate with production. Like, oh, it'd be cool to have this challenge where everyone's shooting slingshots, just like the real show. And then you get out there and not a single person has ever touched a slingshot before. So the challenge is going on for 2 hours. That's just something I did not anticipate until you're on production and just see these challenges that go on forever. Memory doesn't work that way. So that's a benefit.
No.
Right. Yeah. Beta testing is big for us. We'll go through our whole challenge and we'll bring in like family members and friends just to run through these, hoping that somebody will ultimately fail so we can figure out, okay, if this is going to take that person that long, how long will it take, one of our contestants, one of our players. So we do our best with it. Obviously, like you said, though, it's anything can happen in the game.
Tori, did you have a specific strategy in this challenge? Because you made it relatively far. I think you made it to the final round.
I didn't plan on making it that far. I was tired, and once I saw the images were reversed, I'm like, oh crap. And like Jason said earlier, I tried to make a story out of it. Hey, black ship parks by the white fire with the black sun. I tried, and it was actually working. I thought I was gonna be the first one out. So when I made it as far as I did, I'm like, maybe I can win this. I don't know if I can. But yeah, my mind was already just ready to be done at that time, and I don't know how I outlasted the people that I did.
Nathan, we joked, I think, on the last week's podcast about Tori. Everyone keeps talking about he's a physical threat. You saw him that slingshot, and then he wins the mental challenge, and now he almost won the memory challenge on top of that. It's just adding to this narrative that he's unbeatable.
Yeah, it is funny how that keeps working out, all these super mental challenges that Tori's beasting along the way.
He's well-rounded. Well, Tori does not win, but Ashley wins. Her first individual immunity win. I don't think she was in danger, but again, just with how the numbers are, she really immunity win is always good when the original numbers are still not in her favor. So that was a lot of fun to see. And then Nathan, we get first actually, Jason, I found this interesting. It was in the episode. You came into the camp and you let everybody know that we're going to have tribal council in the morning. Was that always the plan, that challenge? It would be challenge at night and then trial in the morning, or was that kind of a on the spot decision to have tribal go in the morning?
No, we were planned to have that in the morning, and it had been a long day. We actually finished up right where we wanted to be with our timeline, maybe within a half hour of where we wanted to be. But I felt that everybody worked hard and pushed through that like 2 hour to 3 hour window where it just was like action packed. There was a lot going on, a lot of tribal. So I just felt that it was important to kind of go over and just kind of, thank everybody for pushing it through, their hard work, their consistency, and just coming and going to these challenges and everything else all day. Saturday is just a very long day for us. I mean, it's just jam packed. So, as a crew, we were feeling it. We were tired, but we had signed off right where we wanted to be. So I felt that it was a good moment to just tell these guys, listen, you've made it this far. Have a great night. Sit back and relax. Have a fire. Do what you got to do for the night. Get ready for tribal. It'll be first thing in the morning. So I know, we do things a little differently. It's been said before. That's just the way we run things. It's a very family-oriented type atmosphere. And we want everyone to come in and have an experience that they can walk away with and really be happy with it. So we put a lot of effort into a lot of behind the scenes things, even with players that, get hurt or they get emotional. There's a lot of footage that didn't make it on for numerous reasons, but there were multiple players that at different points in the game had some breakdowns that aren't seen. And I had to go over with the crew and spend, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just kind of consoling and counseling and working through like some of the emotions that people are feeling and say, hey, listen, you've made it this far, this game, anything can happen. Stay in this. We started off with, Chrissy right at the beginning. She was so down and out and so hard on herself about everything and genuinely just felt so bad for what she did. And it was an honest mistake. And so, just talking to her and then also not giving away anything that she was still going to be in the game as we're walking her to where we're going and then telling her, oh, by the way, your time isn't up in this game. But, even just to that point, she had a hard time even wanting to come back into the game because she was so embarrassed. And I was like, listen, you've got to do this. You can do this. And there were other players throughout that, I won't bring anything up unless they ever care to share about it. But we had other players that felt the same way and had some issues, things going on outside of Survivor. And, so our game is a little bit different and we value everybody that's there and know that this is just a game. They're paying to be there. So we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable, that we show compassion for their true feelings. And, so yeah, that night it was a long one, and I just wanted to tell everybody, hey, you did a great job. Have a good night.
And that really does quickly form bonds between contestants and production too. Like even outside the game, there are people when I played my second time I played a live game, where I was having a really, really hard time in a specific spot in the game, and the way several production members were so good to me in that scenario has really, I still have a lot of respect for them and a lot of appreciation for what they did. So it's just very good for fostering a community as well.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely makes a difference.
And I was just going to add, I mean, that's something that I really like about Angelica, and I'm glad you brought that up, Jason, because, on paper, you're like, oh, keep the game as pure as possible, emulate the real show as possible. But at the same time, this is a community and this is a game and an experience people are paying for. And these are real emotions with real people. And it's not a bad thing to make sure you talk to them and their feelings are valid and let them know it's going to be all right. And I really respect that Angelica, as well as other live games, do that. So yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yep.
It's kind of a thing where if you are playing a live game in the middle of the woods, you almost certainly care about Survivor enough for this to be a big deal in your life. And therefore, if you're doing poorly or not as well or something went wrong for you, it's going to take more of an emotional toll as well. So I think that's another big difference maker with these games.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a lot more emotional than then I think people realize that they haven't done it. You know, you just put a lot into it mentally and emotionally. Like, you get attached to the people as well. You form these bonds with the crew. It's hard. But I was, you know, on top of this, you know, JC, you talked about giving them this time all night to talk about the votes. Tori, that obviously has an impact on strategy, because it's one thing to plan a vote and you have, say, 20, 30 minutes to talk about, but when you have all night, there's a lot of room for that to change. There's a lot of room for different ideas to happen. I'm curious, just in your opinion, do you think the vote would have ended up the same had it been a tribal that happened in 20 minutes after the challenge?
I can't say for sure. I don't know. Now watching that episode back and knowing where lines were drawn, maybe it would have been me. You know, just looking and knowing that words that I was saying was getting back to Justin. So Justin knew for a fact that I was gunning for him. You know, he was gunning for me. And, you know, yeah, I don't know. Tribal can go either way. Like, even when you're sitting there, like a few episodes ago, I had immunity around my neck. I'm still sitting there nervous, thinking I could still be getting voted out. I don't know what advantage somebody might have. You know, I don't know what's in the game, what somebody may have found. Never know. So it could have went either way. Like I said, I was not going for Ayla. Wanted Justin. I don't know how more I can say it, but
at this point in the game, who did you consider to be?
I'm sorry, Nathan, you cut out a little.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
At this point, who did you consider to be your closest allies in the game?
My closest allies, I would say, were Dan and Mark. Once Ashley and Alyssa came over, I wanted them to stick with me, and I wanted to get out my original girls first, minus Christina. I wanted Sarah and Ayla gone. I was willing to work with Alyssa and Ashley. I told them that countless times, over and over again. Couldn't save Alyssa. Sorry, Alyssa, you know I love you. Couldn't save her, but you know, Sarah was first girl we got rid of, and then it was going to be Ayla, and then I'm pitching to the girls. I want to get Andrew out after that. I think I gave up too much of my game to them.
Nathan, it's interesting, and yeah, that's why I asked the question, because it's one thing to, you know, have to strategize for a vote, you know, and you have about, say, 20, 30 minutes, but it's a whole other thing when you have multiple hours, you know, where lots of different things can happen. Nathan, how much, just as someone who's also played the game, how much do you think having a longer period of time to strategize changes the outcome when it otherwise could have been something else?
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous how much it changes things. Things change like, minute to minute, just who's able to talk with someone, who gets a harebrained idea after sleeping the night before, just the whole shebang. Who's in a funky mood after they didn't drink enough water in the morning, that kind of thing. So time makes all the difference. I mean, you see it a lot with a lot of the time these tribes that just don't go to tribal council forever. Not that anyone on our panel would have any knowledge of that. But when they finally do go to tribal, who might have been in danger in the very early going is not even a consideration anymore, because they've had so much time to think about it.
And you bring up a good point, because we get a confessional from Andrew, and he's talking just how he sees the game, right? You know, he sees it as him and Ashley are working together, Dan and Tori are working together, Justin Gersino are working together. Mark's kind of got his hand in all the cookie jars here. So it's very interesting, because, you know, we came into this merge, the numbers were so low. Okay, the Ashley and Andrew could have been picked off, but now they're seeing as swing votes. You know, they have a lot of power, which, because the original tribe is taking shots at each other. So it's just very interesting. Like you said, Nathan, the original, what could have happened had they lost early on isn't even so much a factor anymore, because people are worried about endgame. So it's very interesting in that regard. Jason, I wanted to ask you, we do get in Idle Fine, 10 episodes in, it happened. There are idols, and we get it from Andrew, and I thought it was really interesting. He said he had to climb on top of the cabin. Is that often where idols would normally be hidden around the cabin, or can idols be hidden just about anywhere, do you think?
So it's funny because there are years that I've been involved with where the idols go. And then there's also years where I have no idea where they go. So I am so out of the loop. This year, I think I did an idol search on Friday morning after breakfast. A few were hidden. And I paced the woods. I was tearing that place apart and looking at every precarious spot or any like landmark that looked like an axe or a tree stump that just was really filled with holes. I was digging around them. I think there was one that I traversed down into the hill behind one of the Bennu Bears cabin. And I found one back there. I think that was the only one I found. But on top of the cabin, I cannot confirm or deny if there was actually one place there, or if that was just an audible part of the confessional just to have fun with it. But if we did put one up there, kudos to the crew, because I don't think I ever would have looked up there. But we have placed them under the cabin, around the cabin, in the cabin, at challenges, near challenges, around the cabins, behind each cabin. Just we usually have a fun time. I know the crew really has a good time with doing that. So, it's never the same place. So.
Imagine in future seasons you're going idol hunting and you think, I'm going all in. I'm going to climb up on top of the roof of the cabin to check this out. And your tribe walks out from the cabin and they see you up there, and you have to try to covertly cover this obvious idol search. Like, hi guys, I was just checking out the gutters up here. They look really sketchy to me.
I like the idea of if it wasn't actually on top of the roof and Andrew's just saying that to make it sound cooler. It was just on the bottom in the gutter. No, I climbed to the top, guys. I'm going to say that in a confessional. That's a funny image to me. On top of that, Nathan, it's an idol advantage heavy episode. Mark, he's able to find his advantage. Nathan, this was a very interesting one. Talk to us about it.
So I'm not clear on the rules on this. What's your understanding here with this?
So I think it's like a key that if Mark is voted out, and Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if he's voted out, it automatically works to open the chest.
Yes. So we called it the guarantee. And
I like that. I missed that.
This was another one of those ones where we just wanted a greater chance for these keys to open this box. So we ultimately put one in the game right at the beginning. Luck of the draw, whoever came up and drew it off the table, that's theirs. They're not going to know until they try it. The other one, there was the clue to where it was hidden, or where something was hidden. And then once it was found, we actually had a contingency in there that if the key had already opened the box, we were just going to make that some sort of advantage. We were going to swap it out and make it just an advantage. So there was a lot of shifting to figure out how we were going to do this, but that ended up being a guarantee that hopefully we would draw out, somebody else would try to use it, so that now there's two in the game, and we're increasing those chances of it being used and coming to fruition. Because you guys mentioned, I think in the one of the previous podcasts, that it's a cool concept and theme until it doesn't get used. And there's no guarantee that it can get used. So this was our one last shot that maybe we can make something happen with it.
Nathan, as of this episode, Andrew and Mark don't tell anybody they have these things. And I'd forgotten what it was like when players didn't tell everybody every single thing they had. Like, I'd forgotten what that was like. Even on CBS, I think they tell every player on their tribe that when they have something. It's very refreshing that players can actually keep a secret.
Incredibly refreshing, yes. One question I would have about the guarantee is, can you give it to someone else?
That wasn't written in the rules as far as on his parchment. So as far as that's concerned, as far as we're concerned, it's just like any other key. It's just that now you know for sure that this key opens the box. So you can use that as leverage as long as you have that scroll that shows that, whether you want to just say and try to convince somebody, hey, I got one that works. I know it works, versus having that scroll. But yeah, he could absolutely use that as leverage, as a bartering tool for somebody. That's what we were hoping for, was that somebody knowing that they have the key would work its way around in some sort of conversation in one fashion or another.
Good Lord, you need to do this again just so someone can make a fake guarantee. Trust me, we're going to vote you out, but I have this guaranteed key right here. Just trust me.
A fake. I love it. I do want to talk more about that when we get to that point, but we do have some strategy that I thought was very interesting. Tori, obviously, people are going to tell you what you want to hear, that they're on your side, they're going to vote with you. It doesn't end up working out, but going into Tribal Council, how confident were you with Mark, Ashley, and Andrew that they were going to stick by and do what they told you they would do?
I wasn't confident with Ashley. Wasn't confident with Andrew. Mark I trusted, Dan I trusted. Christina, I wasn't too sure. Justin, I knew, obviously, I'm gunning for him. So I'm not really talking to him, or if we're talking, hey, how's it going? Awkward. But yeah, I still felt good. I thought, okay, maybe Andrew does want to work with me because he was saying he wanted to, but then again, he was saying it to everybody. I may have made a mistake telling Ashley, hey, listen, I know you're with Andrew. I don't trust him at all. He's too wishy-washy. I made that known to her immediately. But I would say I trusted Ashley to an extent. Thought I could really use her. Thought, we had the numbers to get Justin out.
Tori, one thing that I find interesting is you talked about wanting to bring in Ashley and get out some of your original, the ladies on your tribe. But you wanted to get out Justin before Christina, which I found interesting. Can you talk a little bit about what your game relationship was like with Christina out there? Because it's not a relationship we hear a lot about in the episodes.
So, sitting around camp, the other tribe was going to Tribal Council, every time. So we had more time to sit back, relax, get to know each other. And, Christina was, close to my age, she was active. She was just a down-to-earth person, got really good vibes about her. So I had no bad blood with her, no iffy feelings, nothing. She's just a great person all around. So that's why she was high on my list, along with Dan and Mark. She was going to be the next person, But yeah, Justin, just from the get-go, and he was wearing that Boston hat too. No.
Just another reason, just adding on to it.
Yep, just adding on. And I don't know, he just looked suspicious, so to speak. I can't really explain it, but then I don't know who I heard talking about it, but somebody's like, hey, Justin's done these before. Oh, really? I didn't think to ask him directly, but that was all I needed to hear, and that's when he became target number one for me.
Jason, it's interesting, and I can't remember if we talked about it on the very first podcast where we had you and Andrew on. When you've played previous games, how do you go about divulging that information to anybody, if at all? Do you think there's a right way to handle it if you have played past games? Do you use that information, or is that better kept a secret?
I think we have talked about it before. And it really depends. I think it's situational, because if you're going into a game that maybe is new, or you don't really recognize any of the names or faces there, like, let's face it, the community is large, but it's also very small. So some of the common household names, you're going to start seeing them more frequently. Or if you're watching some of the, more frequent YouTube type episodes, or the ones that are doing it instead of versus live, it's hard when some of these ones go live and that's the only time you see it, versus the episodes where you can go back and watch it in your leisure. So I think being honest is really paramount, because if you try to lie and somebody has seen you in an episode or footage, they can call you out real quick and game over. And I've actually been approached behind the scenes by multiple players for multiple seasons that we've casted, asking specifically, like, if we were going to say anything about their history, or if we'd ever did any sort of like player bios or anything like that, or just, hey, I've played 3 games. What's my approach? Should I tell people I've played before? And I've had people ask me that are applying for other games if they should say they've played before. I'm like, listen, in today's world, everything is on video. You're best to just be honest and be straightforward. When I played my first time, I really didn't know too many people. I had met them through like a few gatherings here and there and knew some of the people and some of the faces. My second time around, it was very well known that I had played before and that I won. And so, I had the biggest target on my back right from the get-go, right out of the gates. And I have, to this day, my strategy was similar in both games, and I was honestly surprised that it worked. But I never once, denied the fact that I had played before at any capacity. And then my third game was the same way. It was a few people that didn't know me and didn't even think to ask if I had played before. And then they found out. And I was in for a couple rounds. I expected to go quick, and they kept keeping me in the game. I'm like, guys, I want to be not on the jury, and I want to go have fun. So let's vote me out sooner or later here, because otherwise I'm going to turn this game on. and so I had an opportunity to talk to someone, and she comes up to me and she goes, "Wait, you've played this before and won?" And I was like, "Yeah, twice." And she goes, "Oh, you've got to go." And at that point I was like, "Yeah, I'm sealing my fate here." But I wasn't going to lie. I thought about it. I thought about changing the whole script and saying, well, the 2 people that want me out right now have also played this game before, so let's go for them. But in any event, everybody can play different. Depends on how good of a liar you are too. But I like honesty. I feel like it has a little bit of weight to it.
I also love that statement you made about how vote me out before the jury. I don't want to be on the jury. I want to, if I'm going to get voted out before the jury. When so many times we hear in the games, can I at least make jury? At least, if I'm going to get voted out, I at least want to be on the jury. And like, no, I'm good. And I feel like I don't hear that too often. So that was just funny. That's a very refreshing take.
Angelica is fun, and the crew is fun, and the atmosphere is fun. And a lot of the, nighttime activities, you hear the crew getting together and kind of having a good time by the fire. And so I had always wanted to be part of that little get together, and I never had the opportunity in the other games I played. So I was like, listen, if I make the jury great, I'm going to be a great juror, but I would really like to just enjoy and eat the food while it's still available and enjoy my Saturday, instead of like stressing out all night, and even as a juror, you're still stressing things, like wondering where it's going to go and who, you have to pay attention to everybody's game and watch what they're doing. It's like, it's exhausting. It's rewarding, but it's exhausting. So for me, I wanted to see what that life was all about. I just wanted to have a beer with the crew.
I would have preferred it though if Jason would have won a third time by asking people to vote him out, and therefore no one assuming he's a threat. Just ultimate 4D chess move right there.
He gets to the end and he's like, "Hey, you could have voted me out. I even asked for it, but you kept me around, and now I'm here. Give me the title." I would have loved that. That'd be amazing.
That's a bold strategy.
Nathan, this strategy is very interesting because I feel like this storyline of Tori versus Justin has almost been like a Cold War. It's been brewing for several episodes now, and it's finally coming head to head here. What did you think about this? About Justin trying to get everybody together, Tori trying to get everybody together? What did you think about all this?
So, Justin is really good. He has some kind of mist on people. People just listen to him, and I've been very impressed. We saw him in Real Foot playing, and he was very impressive there. And same here. I mean, he got the numbers.
Yeah.
But on the same token, that's why you got to get him out.
Yeah.
I would be interested to hear from you all. What do you think makes him so persuasive in that way? Because he's not like a extremely boisterous personality, at least on camera. So, do you think it's just like one-on-one relationships? What do you think?
He's a great guy. He's a great human being. Justin, you got a handsome smile too, dude. Like his smile is inviting. So I can see why, he can pull numbers and whatnot. Like I said, I got no bad blood with anybody in the game. He just had to go. But he's a great human being. I think he's awesome. He knows how to talk. Even the chats we've had just hanging out in the cabin, just getting to know people. It's just like, oh, he's cool. Oh, this guy's cool. This guy's cool. He's just an all-around great guy. Like I said, minus that stupid Boston hat.
What is your take on it, Jason, from watching Justin play?
He's a badass player. He commands the room, but not in a dominant way. It's just a very persuasive, articulate, knowledged way. You want to listen to him. You want to talk to him. You want to see what he has to say, and he wants to see what you have to say. He's a very good listener. He's very attuned to his surroundings and everything that's happening in the game. And while he's listening, you can see the wheels spinning. He is always thinking. He's always thinking of a move. He's always thinking of who he wants to talk to next. There's a reason that he's won these games before. And, it shows. And I think that really people started to pick up on that. And we're like, damn, he's a threat. And, wholeheartedly, I mean, he is a powerful player, an impactful player. And, he runs his own game, which is a really impressive game. Started it from the ground up. And he is just, he eats, breathes, and sleeps Survivor. And he is what this LRG community looks for. Like, we love this kind of thing. And I'm so happy that it's working out for him. He's doing a great job. And I know it's so consuming when you put all that on your shoulders. And for him to even come to our game while he, I think, had either just had his game or he had played a game, then he's in our game. And then the same thing afterwards. I think he either had to play another one or crew another one, or he was in another one of those. But he was just so consumed for like 3 weeks. I was even impressed that he could focus enough to play a game, but you could see the exhaustion on his face on Saturday afternoon. I could tell like he was just at that point where, man, this is a lot. So hats off to him. He played a really great game, and I think that our players picked up on how quickly he could turn this game around, and they did what they had to do to get to the next level and ultimately not have him sitting there next to them. So.
Yeah, and I think a part of it also is he's just, you talk to him, he's just very disarming. He's not intimidating. He doesn't talk down to anybody. He's just a very likable person, and you guys hit on the head there. He's just really, and he's one of the few people in these players I've seen in these games, not it's impossible, but one of the few I've seen that is just as good one-on-one as he is in a group setting. A lot of times people are either good at one or the other, and he's good at both. He doesn't, people listen to him in a group setting, and he has influence, and he's good one-on-one. So that's a very dangerous combo, but it's also incredibly rare. And also, everybody watch Outlast. It's Justin's game. It's on YouTube. It's a really fun game. But we do get into tribal council here. And
first of all, Parker, but wait, before you go into this, Parker watches every single live game. I don't know how he has time to do anything. You're watching Justin's game. Where do you have time to do all these things?
I mean, listen, when I'm at work and nothing's going on, I have look. There might be some YouTube time or some Netflix time. What can I say here? I'm sorry to any of my clients watching.
I'm sorry to interrupt there. I'm just so impressed by this man's viewing experience. He's able to do Angelica, Michigan, Justin's game, probably some other.
He does Survivor in his free time.
Yeah, I do.
Yes, much like Jared from last year.
I'm Jared. I do Survivor in my free time. That's why I was offended when that was used as a reason to get rid of Jared. Like, what does that even mean? It's a good thing. So we do get into tribal council here, and Jason, I'm always curious to ask people who host these games this kind of question, because as a host, when you're at Tribal, some players are really active in participating in the conversation. They give detailed answers. Some, they answer the question, but they're a little bit more reserved just for XYZ reason. Who would you say was the MVP of Tribal this season from a host standpoint?
Early on, and actually through the whole game consistently, I think Andrew was really king of Tribals. He was very vocal. He communicated a lot of things. Christina was definitely a solid second. She had a lot to say, a lot to offer up. I think the two of them really took charge of wanting to voice their opinions and voice some of the things going on that I can remember. Those were the standouts to me. And then obviously there's others here and there that, just kind of mixed in. Mark was pretty good here and there too with some of his. I feel like he kind of Mark was good at reading the room and could tell that I was trying to do something. And so he would kind of chime in with something. And then once that started, the next person would come in with something. But again, it's such a delicate balance to not call people out too aggressively and put anybody, on the chopping block, when they may not have been. But at the same time, I need to get information and I want to create drama. So it's definitely a delicate balance, and it's still a learning curve for me. And again, every cast is different. So you got to change up your strategy every season. So every time I think I did really good at something, the next year it's like, oh, great. Well, I got to try something different here.
Well, that's why I asked, because again, there's no right or wrong way to do Tribal from a player standpoint, that's why I brought up, because just from a host, you're trying to tell the story, you're trying to gather intel. And that's why I was curious from your perspective, who was really good at delivering. And I thought and also I do think that Andrew and Christina were great choices. I did notice a glaring error that Ray wasn't mentioned. He did give the best pose at Tribal Council. Maybe that wasn't part of your criteria, but I would have given Ray a shout out.
Ray definitely deserves a shout out. And I really would have liked to have seen more of him and what he would have brought to the game moving forward with his personality, to see where he blended in as this game got more intense. And I do think too, honestly, at Tribal, he brought an element of comedic value, but he had a serious side to him. And I think that as we moved forward, I think he would have brought out a little bit more conversation at Tribals too. There's quite a few people that really did contribute. Some of it didn't make clips, some of it did. But I try to balance it as best I can. But if I find that there's people that are going to give me stuff, I'm going to go to them. And it's not that, I have a favorite, but if they're going to talk, I'm going to use them as my, my informant for that challenge or for that Tribal or whatever we're doing.
Jason, you've been hosting a few years now. Who comes to your mind when you think of your go-to person for Tribal Council answers? Who do you think has given the most, I don't want to say drama, but the best answers at Tribal Council for you?
Ooh, that's a really tough one. Gosh, I can't even come up with a quick answer, to be honest with you. If we were to base it off this season, I'm going Andrew right away, right off the top again. He was really, really good at the Tribals and really brought up good points. So to me, that would be one.
I agree with that take as well. I remember we were talking about a few podcasts ago, just Andrew has a really good way of just bringing where he's at in the game in a way that makes sense for the viewer. And it's not confusing. He's a really good narrator as well in confessionals. So I think that's a great pick. So Nathan, we get to the vote, and the split happens on Dan and Tori. But after we do get to the votes, Tori has 3. That's enough to send him home until we get the highlight of the episode, Nathan.
The Phoenix. I realized I was muted after I said that. The Phoenix.
Honestly, I thought you were pausing for dramatic effect. So
yes, 100% intentional.
But this was such a fun reveal. I mean, this was. I'm very curious, obviously, Jason, to get your take on it. But first, Tori, it happened to you. Just obviously, you stayed in the game. That's good. But just if you can just describe it, how were you feeling in that moment when, of all keys, yours worked?
Well, let's go back to when Jason read that third vote. I'm just like, damn, they got me. I wasn't even mad at it. I'm like, good game, but they don't know I got 3 keys. So I don't know if they showed them. I got one from Teresa, and the other one came from Chaz. Chaz gave me the other one, so I thank him for that. I did know Chaz from outside the game, so I think that was probably his reason behind it. So I get up there and I'm sitting on that stump and I'm looking, and I flip the thing up and I'm looking at the keyhole and I'm like, the one around my neck's not going in there, but I know one of these ones in the pocket is. I know it. So I do the first one, reach in the pocket, grab the second one. That thing slides in there. I'm just like, oh. I didn't know what to expect. So when I opened the box, first thing I saw was a lighter. And I'm like, if I have to build a fire, I might as well just tell Jason, just take me to pack my bags. I'm out. But all I had to do was just light the torch and I'm back in the game. Oh my gosh. I did, but I didn't want to. But the excitement that I had inside of me, I just wanted to just burst out laughing and go, ha, 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 I'm coming for all of you now. I held it in, stayed calm, cool, calm, collected. And all right, let's revote. Who's going?
No, you handled it super well. You have that instinct of like, can't get me out. But then the split second, your mind is like, oh, wait, I still have to play the game with these people. So can't do that. I still need them to keep me around next time. So you handled it really well, because I don't know. Not that I would have been cocky, but knowing myself, I would have been very excited in that moment. It would have just been, of all people, for this twist to happen to, would it happen to me, I would have been very excited. Nathan, how do you think you would have been in this moment?
I think it would have been just overwhelming, because you're getting voted out, which already feels surreal. Then you are... Dude, I would have had trouble opening the lock even if I had the key. I feel like my hands would be so shaky because I'm so nervous from being voted out. So yeah, it would be a whole rush of emotions. I'm sure that's what was going on here. What's the name officially of this advantage? Is it the Phoenix Idol? Is that the official name?
Phoenix.
Well, it's a cool name for an advantage too. So you have the whole works here.
No, it was super cool. And full circle moment we talked about in the very first podcast, Jason, and you couldn't tell us then. You said it would pay off, and we have you here tonight talking about it. First, I thought it paid off. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. I thought it was great that it was used, and Tori's excitement, even though he was trying to keep it in, you could just tell by his mannerisms he was excited. So I thought it worked really well. As a host and the other crew members, how did you think this twist played out, Jason? Did it play out how you guys hoped it would?
Yeah, and at a big moment too. This honestly could have been played a million different ways, but the way that it all went down, from Tori's reaction, being very smooth and calm and cool about it, because like you said, you could have gone any which way with this. You could have been like, in your face and you're all going down, or just like, yeah, I'm back, now what? And just like, it's not going to work well by doing that, and you have to play with these people and figure out the end game here. So you've got to kind of be calm, cool, and collected and say, all right, I'm back in the game, and now we've got some important business to tend to here. So that part was great. Tori handled it great. I was very happy for him. I know I was sitting there thinking, gosh, one of these is going to work. I had this feeling, and I was so happy to see it inside, and the crew was all the same way. Like, we can't jump for joy. We can't be, showing those reactions, but I'm ready to scream, yes, finally. So we were very excited that it played out. There was that worry that, we're getting down there in numbers, and at some point the keys aren't going to matter. So we were very happy to see it happen, come to fruition, and play out the way that it did in a big tribal where, we had a situation where, some of those things could come into play. So that was cool.
And it was crazy because I know it's very cliche, but I mean, the final 7 in Survivor is typically one of, if not the biggest vote of the season. It's very important. You know, you can lock in a couple players and just cruise to the end after that. Or that's normally when people start picking off who they perceive to be the biggest threats. So it happened at a crazy vote. And also a big move was attempted and it almost succeeded. So it just added on to the chaos of what was already a pretty epic tribal council.
Definitely. It definitely was.
And I did have one question, and you may not be able to answer, but I figured I'd ask anyway. Jason, was how late into the game did you guys plan to have the Phoenix Idol be usable? Was it like done after Final 5 or so, or how long were you willing to keep it going?
I want to say it was through 5 or 4. Okay. It's skipping my mind right now, but I know that it was going to end very soon. We didn't have it. I want to say it probably was 5, but yeah, it got to the point where we were starting to wonder, either the guarantee is going to come into play here at some point, or somebody has one, and we're going to get lucky. So, yeah, I'm so happy it worked out the way it did.
Now, if the holder of, even after the chest was open, if the holder of the guarantee got voted off after that, could they have still used it, or does the chest only work once?
So the chest only works once.
Okay.
And initially they were told only one key is going to open it, and we emphasized that only one key would open it, so that they would put some focus on, geez, one of us has the key. We're going to start swapping these things around. And then as more players started to get willed their keys, that starts to spur some, motivation in some of our players that were getting multiple keys. Like, oh man, not everybody's going to get this. So now people are stacking up multiple sets of keys here, and they can start to have a little bit of control or power, not unwillingly. They're not going to know what they are, but the more they have, the more they got to think this has some sort of, probably going to have a positive effect on my game. So the more I have, the better. So for Tori to have 3, he's sitting at that tribal, and seeing that people have attempted these, and I'm sure he's thinking in his head, all right, if I get voted out, at least there's something here for me that I can try that might save me. So, at that point, a lot of the players are probably hoping, shoot, gee, I only have one key. This sucks.
So Tori returns to the game, and on top of that, we have, not only is that crazy enough, we have to have a revote, because the vote was tied between Dan and Justin. And Nathan, this wasn't shocking to me given the actual context, but it was very interesting that on paper you'd think, oh, we stuck with Justin on the split vote, Tori's safe, so now we vote Dan. No, they all flipped to vote out Justin. I assume that came from everyone just thinking, well, Tori and Justin are the biggest threats. Tori's off the board, so now we take out Justin. And so I wasn't shocked that it ended up being on Justin. It was interesting that they were willing to flip so quickly when Dan was an option. What did you think, Nathan?
I had the exact same thought process. I think a lot of it's just like, we got to get rid of one of Tori or Justin during this tribal council. We can't go to the next round with both of these guys still in the game. So yeah. I think that was probably what they were thinking.
I agree. It was a good move. It seemed like Dan was just kind of a victim of circumstance in this instance, but he wasn't necessarily the main target. So I think that's a lot of what it came down to. Tori, I'm curious because you did get to vote, and obviously obviously your vote made complete sense. I don't know why you would have done anything else, but were you surprised that everybody else flocked to Justin after all of them just helped to vote out you and vote Dan?
I thought Dan was going home. I really did. Thought he was going home. I'm like, he had votes against him. That means they want one of us out. So now that I'm safe, they're going to go for him, take out my number 1, and then I'm done. But, Jason read the votes. I'm just like, oh, okay. All right. But I got to go back to when I opened that box. Justin's face just immediately.
No.
Just the look of disappointment. And it was great. Justin, I love you, but man, I wish they got camera footage of that because it was perfect for the moment.
Oh my gosh.
It was definitely a look of defeat. I think he knew it was coming, and just he already looked tired at that point in the game, and then to see that happen, it was just like that was the ultimate blow. And I'm sure it had to suck to just sit in that spot and be like, oh no.
Right. It's
It must have been
unfortunate.
nice for him though. He gets eliminated and he's able to just go back and relax and watch a game of Survivor play out. And if he's sick of Survivor, he can then host a game of Survivor and then probably play another game of Survivor. There's just no escape from Survivor here.
It is unfortunate because I mean his move worked, on paper, any other round this works. But it just it has to be unfortunate. Whoever was the person who would end up on the other side of the Phoenix idol, it would be unfortunate, but that's the game. And he took it like a champ. He didn't complain. He wished everybody good luck. And that's another reason why he's just a great guy and a great player. Is he doesn't take the game personally. He's like, oh, they got me. It didn't work out this time, and I thought that was very nice to see. Not that I was surprised by that coming from Justin. Just that's always good to see because it is a tough way to go out. But yeah, that's just it is wild. Tori, you talked about a second ago of just they're gonna take out Dan now. It's just gonna be me. How am I gonna recuperate from this? And then Jason's reading the votes. I'm like, did you quickly piece together maybe a reason why they flipped the votes, or in that moment were you just stunned that Dan somehow survived?
After the votes were read, I'm like, all right, everybody saw me as a threat. They were taking a shot at me. Justin's the next biggest threat. They saw it as an opportunity to get him out. So that's what they did. So now I'm like, crap, I'm going to be fighting the uphill from here. It's going to be a long. Was that Sunday? That was the last day. It's going to be a long day. I almost said week.
Probably feels like a week when you're out there, and you're doing all these rounds.
So when he first, and another thought going through my head, I hadn't had anything to eat except the morning before when I housed those sardines. So I'm like, hey, if these keys don't work, I'm going to eat now. So I'm in a good spot because I'm starving. Your boy likes to eat.
That is, well, we do lose Justin, unfortunately, and we are at our final 6. Nathan, predictions? Where do we go from here? We've got Tori's come back. Tori's been voted off, but he's in the game. We've got an idol now. We've got all these different relationships. There's a lot going on.
So just to be clear, you haven't watched the next episode yet, have you?
No.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have found a live game episode that Parker has not viewed. So I am beyond excited to see what happens next here. I feel like this time last season I had a much better idea of who was going, who's probably in trouble, that kind of thing. Here it's a free for all. I mean, we just had the guy who was like heading the charge on this last vote be sent home.
Yeah.
So I feel like there are certainly people whose names would stick out more than others, but I mean, do you have a clear prediction here?
I mean, there's just so many ways this can go. I mean, like, they tried for Tori once. Are they going to try again? Is there going to be some flipping going? Where do Andrew and Ashley go in this thing? Is the other original Anka going to stick together like, hey, these two have a great story, let's vote them out? There's just a lot of different ways. And I think what's interesting about this end game as well, and you brought up a second ago, one thing that is similar to last season, I think, is I don't think there's any clear like, oh, this person just is out of it, at least from a viewer standpoint. Like, all of them have a argument to make. I think if they make the end, like, is anybody just completely running away with it? Who knows? So I think it's interesting as a lot of these people can be considered threats just for different reasons, So I think that's also a factor in it, is like, who do they consider the next biggest threat, going forward? So I really don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting. Sorry, did I cut out?
No.
Hear ya.
Okay,
Good.
just making sure. Let's see, but that's what I think. I'm trying to think. That was all that I had for this specific episode. Jason and Tori, was there anything else that maybe was behind the scenes that we didn't touch on or didn't make the episode?
A couple of episodes ago, I think Kurt, the cameraman, did a horrible job filming that dodgeball game. I don't know if you remember that episode. We got robbed on that. I wanted an official review. It didn't happen. That's all I got to say about that. Cameraman Kurt.
Jason, any comment?
I know what he's referring to, and it was tough. We relied on cameraman Mike because he's actually in real life he's an official. So we used him for a couple of the challenges, as you saw, and his eye is the very well trained eye catching quick action things, and we had to rely on his judgment and just kind of those around us. Trying to watch dodgeball is a really hard one to try to judge for Survivor. So we just thought it'd be a fun physical game. But we had to rely on what he was saying and what some of the other ones were. So it's kind of I'll actually step back an episode or two too, where the kick heard around the world.
Yeah,
we encountered this kick, and it had never been said you couldn't use your feet. I just said you had to knock the pin off the paddle. Use however you had to do it. Swipe it is what I said. But swiping could be done with your feet. Why can't it? And so that swipe happens. And we're just like, what do we do now? We stop. We all talk with each other. I mean, we talked for a good couple minutes trying to figure out how do we allow this to move forward without changing rules or, everything changed. So we had to, on the fly decision was we're going to allow that point, but we're not going to allow any more kicking here on forward. And poor Ayla, she gets, I think she got knocked by the pin. When it came down, it hit her on the side of the head and came down. And ahead of the game, we had never seen that before, other than when people throw them up in the air and then run across and knock somebody's over. That was like the go-to move, but we didn't allow it because they're true bowling pins. They're heavy and we don't want anybody to get hurt. So we're not allowing the throw anymore. So we're figuring like that's going to be like the go-to move if anybody's trying it, not a kick. So, crazy things come up in these games, questionable calls. We try to rely on as many people as we can. The crew tries to help each other out. Sometimes we'll look at footage if we can, if we think we've gotten, clear enough footage of something, but, not often, but, it happens. And Tori, unfortunately, just, it didn't go the way he wanted.
Jason, I have one more question. Obviously, the season's not over yet. We still have, the finale to look forward to, to see how it all ends. But I'm just curious, as you've gone to host a few seasons now. You've been a part of Angelica for a while. How does this season for you rank in terms of other seasons, in terms of just your enjoyment of it, the players? How has this season been for you?
Good question, Parker. That's good.
This is a really, really great season. I want to give some kudos to Kurt for really building the storylines and the confessionals and like the going back and forth between conversations. He has so much footage. I mean, we had, I don't know how many cameras we had going and how many SD cards of footage, but for him to sort through all that with little to no help, I mean, he has occasional help when he can, but for him to do all that, it really made this game what it was. For these players to see it now and see the whole thing come together from both tribes, what's going on at each other's camps and what's being said, they can all see that. But this group to me was one of the more memorable ones for me, and the fact that we all stay in touch still. Each season we try to stay in touch with everybody, but it doesn't always, you don't get the whole group. This has actively been the whole group since last year. So for me, it's a really good group of people, and I enjoy the chats that go on and the bantering back and forth and the jokes and everything else. Every season so far, I think, has stepped each other up one after another, after another, after another. So I'm excited to see where it goes, from here. And if the trend continues, then I can't wait for next season. So, there's been some memorable moments for sure in seasons past, some really great players, fan favorites, winners that, I really feel have made our game what it is. One of my favorites was just a couple seasons ago. We had a girl that got voted out second, I believe, and she did a battle back challenge, came back in the game, and was in the final two.
Oh,
and
shoot.
Yeah, and she didn't win. Ohio Matt, we call him Ohio Matt. He won the game, and he played a great game. He deserved to win. But for her to go through that, that was another memorable one for me. Jen was her name, and she kicked butt to be able to go through all that, get back in the game, and work her way through all the way to the end. So, anything's possible in these games. It really is, and I look forward to each season and all the twists and how these players handle what their survivor knowledge is and how they in their personal skills and what they have and bring to the game. So, but yeah, this group here, amazing. They really were.
And on that note, I think that's all we have. I want to thank everybody who tuned in live. I want to thank Tori and Jason. Thank you guys again for joining us. It was a lot of fun. This was a great episode. I'm glad we got to cover it. We'll be back. We're nearing the end of the season, folks, where we'll be back very soon to cover the next episode. It should be a fun one. And that's all I had. Nathan, take us away.
All right. Hopefully next week we'll be doing a double episode recap. And otherwise, see y'all soon.
Hey, thanks for having me.